Поднимется, когда прикатит.
NASA Chief Astronaut Bob Behnken. Bob, the Soyuz is ready to fly. Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko ready to spend a year in space. What is Scott's level of preparation at this point, his state of mind as he embarks on an historic mission?
Scott is definitely ready to go for this one-year mission. His previous time on orbit allowed him to really focus over the last year and a half or so to really get prepared. His personal effects are in order, and he's definitely ready to go.
What is the biggest challenge in your mind for a crew member, both from a physiological and psychological standpoint, to leave the planet for a year, leave his family and friends behind, and tackle what will be a challenging year's worth of work on the station?
I think the thing that'll be most challenging for any of the crew members that go up, whether it's for a 6-month mission or for a 1-year mission, and Scott has a very good perspective on this, having already done a 6-month mission, is preserving enough flexibility to be prepared for anything that comes his way. So over the year, it's really hard for us to predict exactly what's going to be expected of him while he's on orbit. You know, we'll have vehicles that come and go. We may have a contingency EVAs or otherwise that need to be put on his plate to go off and execute. We can't say what all those things are going to be right now, but being prepared for all of those eventualities, I think, is the most challenging thing. Being emotionally prepared for all those eventualities is the most challenging thing, and I think Scott's ready for that.
From an astronaut office standpoint, Bob, what do you guys have to do to take extra care, extra nurturing of a crew member on orbit for that period of time?
One of the things that we really want to make sure that we take care of Scott with is having some flexibility with his time on orbit. You know, during the year that he's in space, he'll go through 4 different increments and the ground teams associated with those different increments. By the end of the 4th one, or the beginning of the 3rd one probably, he'll have a pretty good perspective on what needs to be done and the timing and sequencing of things going forward. And so retraining those ground teams and taking into account Scott's experience so that he can contribute in that process as he goes forward is going to be really important. And so it's something that we've thought a lot about. You know, towards the later parts of the time he's on orbit, we really want to make sure that he has an input. He's got some flexibility to kind of tell the ground what the next best steps are, what the sequencing of activities should be, so that he can be most efficient and get the most accomplished with the time that he has left on orbit.
Dr. John Charles, NASA's Chief of International Science for the Human Research Program. John, behind you is the Soyuz vehicle that will transport Scott Kelly, Mikhail Kornienko to the station to begin a year in space. For you, this must be a very important, momentous milestone. What are your feelings right now?
Yeah, Rob, we're very excited to be here. This is a culmination of several years of work to see the investigations come together for this year-long mission, hopefully paving the way for future missions like this that will then lead us on to Mars. So it's very exciting and personally fulfilling to be here today.
What are the things that you as a science team will be looking at from week to week, month to month as this year unfolds?
We'll be evaluating how the human body changes by measuring Scott and Mikhail's parameters on a fairly regular basis, looking primarily for differences between the 1-year mission and 6-month missions previously that constitute a large database. With this knowledge of what changes, we'll know what to focus on for future missions to be sure we're prepared for long-duration missions off to Mars.
What is it that makes Scott Kelly a unique subject to do this, and how are you going to track all of this over the course of a year? It's got to be an incredible undertaking.
Well, Scott has proved to be an excellent test subject and an excellent operator of the investigation so far, so we're very lucky to have him. And of course, one of his qualifications is the fact that he's flown previously in a 6-month flight. We'll be making many of the same measurements on Scott on the 1-year mission as we did on his previous 6-month mission, looking specifically for the changes that occur in the body that might be related to the longer duration in flight. But his personal enthusiasm and his dedication to the work has really made him an exemplary subject in this case.
How's life been?
Since I saw you yesterday, it's been just grand.
No.
Where's Alex?
Are you getting excited, Scott, or?
You know, I think a little bit. You know, there's a lot of things have to happen between today and Friday. And it actually, right now, it's kind of, you get on this like very quick train that is moving in one direction and you don't have much control over it. So, but up until today, it's been pretty quiet. So like right after this, and tomorrow there's like press conference, a state commission, this movie that we watched, it's White Sun in the Desert. It's a movie that the Russians have been watching for years. It's a tradition. We watch that. The next day we wake up and it's launch day, even though technically it's not, but it's really the day you go to the pad, so it's kind of launch day. Wake up, do some, have breakfast, pack your stuff, take a nap. We're actually gonna go to the sauna, like, right before we,
Really?
sit in the banyo for a little bit, a while. Yeah, very refreshing, cold water. one last dip in a bathtub. In this case, it'll be ice cold. So it'll be interesting.